Welcome back, guys. Today we have Mr. Yanni Trades. Thank you so much for being here, brother, and I appreciate your time so much, man.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be on.
All right, so let's get into it. How did you actually start trading, and like what made you stay trading? Because you trade right now, right? You're still currently trading? All right.
Yeah. So I got into trading around late 2018, early 2019. I was always really invested in, macro politics. Found my first trading community around that time. I watched a ton of things like YouTube and would just scroll on Instagram and it would get recommended to me. I always really liked stocks and track stocks, but I never really found trading until then. And that's when I got really involved. And after that, joining a community and just understanding what it was all about, I thought with my background, it would have been super cool. And then also at the same time, I was very into gaming, sports. There was a lot of team elements that came into trading actually.
Mm.
And I thought that was really cool at the time. So since then, I was just 100% hooked. We got the COVID markets in 2020, and there was nothing to do during that time. And I spent a lot of my time focused on trading then. And since then, I really haven't looked back.
That's dope. Speaking of COVID,
Yeah.
that's actually when I got into trading heavily too. There was literally nothing
Yeah.
else to do, you know?
Right.
And so you've been trading, I want to say, around 6, 7 years
Yeah.
now.
5 to
Uh,
6, I guess. Right.
uh,
Yeah.
so would you? Because I know profitability is like very empirical. It's like either you're making money or you're not. But would you consider yourself like a profitable trader?
Yeah. And I have the stats to show it. During 2022, I actually got hired at a prop firm called S&B Capital.
Mm-hmm.
I traded with them for about 2 years before going off on my own, and since leaving the firm at 2024, I've been trading myself, my own capital, and I've done decently well for myself, I'd say.
Nice, nice. So I don't know if you have this data. Because I know for us here, we use a lot of strategies that are proprietary. So, like, some things you can't really disclose or else you actually face legal issues. But
Okay.
if you have, like, do you have, like, the biggest loss that you ever took? Like, do you have that at all? Is that something that, or is that from, like, when you just started trading?
Yeah, actually, I take big losses, more often than you might expect, and I'm also very transparent. I don't mind sharing, anything like that. I mean, some things at the firm maybe I can't talk
Mhm,
about,
yeah, for
but
sure.
I think my biggest loss was in 2022 when I was very tilted at the time. I wasn't doing very well. Uh, we had sort of like this weird choppy bear market, and it was a weird stage where I was trying to get into prop trading and trading as a professional at the firm, but I had all this background knowledge that kind of conflicted with what I learned during COVID and before that. And at the time, I was just very tilted, and I was following one of my mentor's trades, and this was the first time I did a trade like this. It was on Nvidia earnings, actually.
Hmm.
Nvidia reported earnings, and I decided it would be a good idea to follow him on a breaking news type of trade. Unfortunately, and this happens with the span of like thousands of trades, but um, I put in the wrong size and I actually doubled my size. I think it was supposed to be like 50 shares, not like 500 shares, something like that. And I added another zero. And I think I lost around maybe like 45K in about like 3 seconds when I was wrong. And like it was just so like I don't know, I was just like paralyzed after I was like, oh damn, like I didn't mean to do that. Like worst case scenario, I maybe would have lost like 4K and or 5K. But adding that other zero was just like crazy. But like at the time, like I just had no plan for that trade. I was trying to make money back and it was terrible.
Dang.
And yeah, but on a relative basis, like I take losses all the time. I think it's completely normal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Every loss kind of teaches you something. It teaches you to be a little bit more specific, and I mean, you learn so much about yourself at actually reviewing that while you're tilting and everything.
It's good that you actually acknowledge the fact that you were actually tilted, because not a lot of people would have admitted that, and it's actually grounds for improvement for sure. Because you seem pretty stable right now. Like you seem like you're like level headed with certain things. So I could just hear that from how you're speaking and your cadence and all that. So I could tell you've grown a lot, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I don't know if you have this because so I told you, like when we were messaging, like I specifically scalp and
Mhm.
I do VWAP and I do OBR, but there's another strategy I can't even talk about because that's from one of our mentors here. Literally sat us down like four of us and was just like, hey, you can't speak about this unless somebody, and you know what I mean, like unless it's like somebody else that's in a group, blah blah blah. So I don't know if you have a strategy that you could actually share with us that you use to trade. Is it like, are you like a options trader, or do you just trade shares, strictly shares?
So I do a lot of both. I think there's a lot of growth with options trading, but it's
Mm-hmm.
primarily those two. I also trade like a lot of crypto futures too
Mm-hmm.
when that's really in play. And I don't mind going over some strategies. I'm very transparent with that stuff. If I share my screen, I could go over it with you.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get it.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, do you see my screen?
It's about to put, yes, sir.
Yeah. So, whoops, just load up the trading view. Yeah, so my favorite strategy is something called the exhaustion gap.
The
And I'll go,
exhaustion gap. Okay, I never heard
yes.
that one before. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's nothing super crazy. The way that I kind of think of it is when a stock is extremely overextended and starting to speed up on the daily chart, you're going to get a gap up in that stock where it's going to pull back really aggressively. I actually made like a little like sort of checklist for this stuff. I'll go over some of those things. I don't mind.
Nice.
But the biggest nuances when it comes to something like this is to one have a hot theme or market, right?
Mm-hmm.
The chart that we're looking at right here is
Yes,
on
sir.
MicroStrategy.
Okay.
I'm sure you know this. It's one of the biggest crypto
Yes,
sort
sir.
of plays, right? Crypto's been extremely hot. Around the same time, we had that election time
Mm-hmm.
Trump rally in crypto. I think Bitcoin returned like 30-40% in a very short amount of time. So that's one check in our favor for that. One thing that I always like to track is ATR. For this strategy, I like to use ATR in days, which is on
You
the
said
bottom here.
ATR, right? I like average true range.
Yes,
Okay.
average true range. So I've noticed from my back testing and just my studying that typically stocks are going to trade in a normalized range like this, where you may not have a very clean sort of move, but once it starts to get above like the four ATRs in the last 5 days sort of range, like here, you can start to get really aggressive pullbacks. And with the right intraday setup, you'll get really big reversal trades. So this is a public trading view sort of indicator. You could just type in ATR in days and should show up. But um, at a minimum, 4 ATRs in the last 5 days, the more the better. But this helps me sort of quantify what is an actual overextension, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that we have on the list is relative volume. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes,
You
sir.
could run relative volume screeners. Right here, we just have like very big increasing volume every day. Um, you want to have really no grind up days. So if we look at the indicator that I posted, right, we still get that 4 ATRs in the last 5 days here, but we have like very grindy price action. Okay, so no grind up days, and you need to have pure momentum, right? So you can notice the difference with this price action here that, okay, you get one expansion candle here, but the next few days they're smaller than the last one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you see these ranges here, you get like, I don't know, let's say this is a 45-point range. The next day we get a 72-point range. And then the day after that, um, you know, another 76-point range. And then we gap up nearly 80 points, maybe even more than that. We get to a point where like the ranges just start to expand and expand, right? And you see that doubling, tripling. I mean, in the past, we were getting like, I mean, the average day was only like 5 or 10 points, like 20 points if it's a really big day.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, we're getting this big expansion on top of a very big uptrend.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the exact nuance that I want to see to find a daily chart reversal like that. So I mean, I talked about a little bit about that parabolic structure, right?
Yeah.
That's speed up. Obviously, with this strategy, you could scan for like a high percentage gain over weeks or months, right? So that 25% mark is basically the minimum. Like this one just ran 300%. So that obviously is going to show up on the screener there. And you want to see a big extension away from the moving averages. So right here, I have this is the 5, 10, and 20 SMA. I like to use the
Uh,
clouds, right?
oh, I was
But
just about to say, I'm like, this looks like a work of art.
thank you. I mean, the reason why I use these clouds is because I don't want to think of them as hard levels. They're sort of
Yeah.
like this area that I'm looking at, you know?
Hold on,
So,
Yanni. I want you guys to
sure.
take special attention to what he just said about the zones because that is very important for like when you're like those who know about zones, you know. I'm not going to explain anything. You know. All right, you can continue.
Right. Exactly. Like if you know, you know. But yeah, I want to see that very big expansion from the 5 and 10 SMA, which is this zone right here. So, I mean, it's hard to see on the replay, but we open up somewhere around here.
Mhm.
Like we have about literally a 25 to 30% move right back into this zone,
Yeah.
which is much bigger than what we saw at any point within this uptrend, right? So that really big expansion is a big sign for me that we're going to reverse, right?
Mhm.
The next step in this is just finding an intraday entry. And there's multiple ways to play this. There's going to be a ton of different legs that you could get involved. But the easiest for me is any opening range breakdowns or like just noticing failed breakouts. So, for example, uh, we have this pre market resistance here, right? We try to break out here, put in a lower high, and we start to break down around here. I'm probably going to short this breakdown around 513 for the second leg, right? And if we get like lengthy hourly long consolidations like this here, this
Mhm.
is about 4 hours long. I want to take the second leg for this breakdown here. And you could get really tight and you probably get a nice move into the close there. So this is one of my favorite strategies. It's very repeatable. And I think it, stands the test of time. Like there's always going to be daily overextensions. There's going to be people chasing stuff. And
Yeah.
I have the historical examples to prove it. So like this happened with SMCI with semi run. This is like an AI related stock. Um, we covered the MSTR. There's going to be some in like low floats like this FFIE. That was a massive run. And it's the same concepts that apply. And you're going to see like lesser grade ones, uh, things with missing variables, but it's really that failed breakout type of setup and reversal, which I by far make the most money with.
Mm.
You could trade this both long and short.
That's the good thing about trades like strategies like that. You get it both ways. Both ways.
Right. Right.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. And so now that we went over the setup, um I want to touch on risk management because for us here, risk management, I think for people like everybody who's actually trading, risk management is probably number one priority. Uh, so do you have like steps that you follow? Like, what's your actual risk management procedure?
Yeah. And this may actually sound a little different than what other people may think of, but I love my risk management with asymmetric bet sizing. So we worked at a firm in the city, SMB Capital, right? And one of the biggest things that I've noticed from my mentors is that they're going to be extremely small relative to their daily stop loss on an average day. And I'm talking about like a quarter percent, 1% of their daily stop. But they would bet very big on trades that they had a lot of edge on. Obviously, this is
Mm,
within guardrails. I'm not saying bet half your account or your 5 times your daily risk on one setup. But when you have something with edge that is very nuanced and very good, just like in poker or any professional like betting sort of thing, you need to bet asymmetrically when you have
the upper hand.
the cards in your favor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was like the biggest thing that kind of changed for me as well. Before joining the firm, I didn't really do that at all. Um, and I think, yeah, I mean, the best traders are always going to bet bigger when there's asymmetric opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So
The trades that we, yeah, go ahead.
how did you bet before? Because I'm interested in hearing how you put your risk management before you found out about this.
Yeah, I would bet the same on every trade, like whatever it was. Like, say my account was like 50K, 25K, whatever, it would be like 2% of my account, no matter what, 500 bucks, $1,000 and I would just bet literally. And
Mm-hmm.
literally nobody at the firm that I work with was doing that. And it was a skill that I had to learn there.
Nah, I feel that because in my experience of what I know, there's like two ways you could actually go about it. Like you could actually ignore the trade that you feel is like, like a 60-50% probability, and then you could just like set your stop loss like relatively I want to say not too steep, but like you give yourself room to go down, like just in case it closes out of your zone. But then you also, if you're betting like a very, very high probable setup, I normally set my stop loss very low because I know like if it goes there, then something actually went wrong. Not with the strategy, but with like not went wrong, but in sense like, all right, this is not what we thought it was. So we're not even going to give it a chance because we already had such a high probability, like 85%, 90%. If it doesn't like spike when we actually enter, then something went wrong in the execution in the stock. So yeah, it's good you actually spoke about that because like I actually learned that recently too. You know what I mean? And you don't get this information on the internet. Like I don't know how. Yeah, but you understand.
Right. Yeah. And there's actually a really big point that I could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a heuristic that floats around that the best trades go in your favor right away.
Yes.
And that is just so true because I just see it in my data all the time. My best trades, there's very little drawdown. It works very quickly, and there's a very quick, risk to reward on that. And that's information in itself. And if you journal and keep track of your playbooks and such, I probably would think you'd find something similar with that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So speaking of the risk management though, like some people handle losing streaks differently. and even winning streaks, but I want to find out about your losing streaks. Like, how do you actually manage those?
Yeah, so I have a rule with myself. I trade with a daily stop loss, right? Whatever that might be. It doesn't matter for that trader, right? I think it's still a good rule. Whether it's like 500 bucks, 5,000, 50,000, doesn't matter, right? If you have like two lockout days where you're
Hmm.
losing your entire stop loss, you need to shut down trading and take a break. Whether that's a few days, a week, um, you're obviously not seeing stuff if you're getting locked out twice in a row.
Mm,
That's golden rule number 1 for myself, but even after a small losing day or even a medium to bigger size losing day, maybe I don't get locked out, it's very important to review and build a plan for the next day so you don't repeat those same mistakes. And sometimes, like, the market is just gonna be slow, it's okay,
hmm.
right? But you need to make sure that there's nothing in your processes that, you're doing wrong or you're not seeing the tape clearly because, the only consistent variable that you could keep the same is you, right? The market could be different. There's so much variance, right? So you need to
I
think
like
about
that.
that, right?
I like that. I like that so
Yeah.
much, bro.
That's a good heuristic, right? I like that.
No,
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah.
The problem isn't the market, it's you. I promise you, it's you.
Right.
Nah, that's perfect, brother. And so I see well, we discussed you've been trading for so long. Did you have like a, I want to call it like the Con Edison moment or the Thomas Jefferson moment where the light bulb goes off in your head where you feel like, all right, yeah, this is probably where trading is for me, or this is probably like
Yeah.
your biggest win, or did you have any of those moments where everything like converged and made sense?
Right. And I think, like, people wanna think that there might be and maybe there is for some people, I don't know, but for me, it was more so small light bulbs every
Yeah.
month, year over year. It's never just one thing where you're just, this is it, everything clicks. I don't think that happens. Maybe it does. I mean, I wanna talk to somebody that, that happened for them, but it's small little bits and pieces. I think the biggest light bulb had to been asymmetric bet sizing because I came from a world where it was very retail driven. I
Mm-hmm.
was in a lot of group chats and I had edge, right? But I wasn't making the progress that I wanted. And then I was working with traders, you know, live trading at a firm in the city sitting next to like 7 and 8 figure traders, and they were just not doing the same things that retail traders were doing, and that had to do with bet sizing. So that was a big light bulb moment for me, I think. That was the biggest
Mm.
one.
Key right there. Key. All right, so Yanni, did you have like a best trade that you took recently?
Yeah, and this
Like a
trade
very good
was
trade.
yeah, this was my biggest trade of all time.
Is
It
this the one?
was
Is this the
every
one you're sharing right now? All right.
yeah. So this was on April 7th. This
Mm,
was tied to the Trump tariffs, the panic that we saw in the overall market. All the concepts that we were talking about in this meeting really just applied in just one special spot on this day. Asymmetric bet sizing, the strategy I've been working on, just game planning. And also, there was a little bit of luck that got involved, but that's not the point. It's that I put myself in a position to win really big by doing all this work and applying all these concepts, right?
mm-hmm,
Does that make sense?
mm-hmm. Perfectly.
So, yeah. So overall, like we talked about our checklist when it comes to the ATR and days, the hot market, the parabolic structure. This all aligned in the overall market, right? You could see that speed up in the daily charts, right? Where the ranges go from 7 points to 17 points, and then we gap down much greater than that, right?
Mm-hmm,
We have the ATR in days, which is very rare for the overall market, right? We trade within that range. So I know that this trade is really in play, right? We talked about the failed break down sort of setup, right? And that reversal. So on the intraday charts, right, we have this gap down, right? We try to break down, you know,
Even further.
even further, right, and try to make new lows. The second where we sort of reverse, right, into here, I'm gonna try to get long with decent amount of size against the low, right? And it turns out to be a spectacular risk to reward trade. And right into here, when we get above the pre-market high and start to range out, this was actually another ad spot that I got involved in.
Oh,
There
so you
was some
sold.
breaking.
So you sold and then re-entered.
I think I had most of my size at this point. I did
Mm.
have runners, but on such a big up move like this is a 14-point rally in a very small amount of time, right? I mean, that's a lot, right?
It
So
is.
naturally, I'm going to sell some, right? But into here, we started getting some crazy volume, right? We get really tight against the, we're above the pre-market high at that point, right? And what I've learned from the past, like with the COVID market especially,
Hmm.
is that these bounces could go way further than you think, right? So I'm actually re-entering for another trade on this breakout. And I did get a little lucky with some news that came
I'm
out,
glad you
right?
admit it the look. Not everybody likes to admit the
Right.
look.
Listen, I've been lucky it both ways, right? In my
Yeah.
favor and definitely against me, right? But if you put yourself in a very good position to win,
Hmm.
like you'll get stuff like that, right? Like maybe if this breaking news trade didn't happen, right, you would still get maybe three-fourths of this move or half
Hmm.
this move. Who knows, right? Maybe it would have been slower. I mean, I did have options, and it was such a big rally that you make a lot off it. But instead of 110K made on that day, it could have been like 50 or 60. Who
Yeah.
knows, right? But it's all the concepts that we've been talking about, right? I have a setup with Edge. It's a very hot market. I'm gonna bet more on my biggest and best trades, and everything's sort of aligned with that, right? So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Yo. No, that was beautiful, brother. Thank you for even sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, before we wrap this podcast interview up, what's one advice you'd give to your younger self? One
Yeah,
piece of
and
advice.
yeah, for sure. And this is gonna hit pretty hard, but I think it's to be not so hard on yourself all the time, right? You need to be proud of the process, even when you're failing or in a drawdown.
Hmm.
This job is hard. I'm not gonna admit that it's easy, and it's gonna get really hard. So don't be so hard on yourself and think that you're making big mistakes. Like these are all learning opportunities, and you just have to get better with time, right? And put the right systems in place. So the biggest thing I would say is don't be hard on yourself.
That's so hard, bro. But that's good advice.
Yeah,
We appreciate it for sure, man. Yo, Yanni, thank you
yeah,
so much for your time and your
you got it.
insight, bro. I really appreciate it. And let's get some more money in the market. All right.
Yeah.